uh, modern day medical um, illustrations. And today, therefore, we will be looking only at Gandhara Jātaka, Jātaka number 406. So if you have any questions, make sure that you ask today for this Jataka. Next week, Saturday, or yes, everybody will have Saturday. So next week, Saturday, we will be covering the other Jataka, and that will be our last meeting for this second part. Let me remind you that this course in Jatakas has 4 parts. Okay, why does this course have 4 parts? Why not 5 or 3? Because our Jataka explanations are dependent or are coming from the great Burmese subcommentary to Jatakas. And this great Burmese subcommentary to Jatakas has 4 volumes, okay, 4 books. And each part of this course, we cover one book. I select from that one book about 6, 8, maybe 9 stories. And these stories I then present to you during that course of that part of this course. Okay. So I'll be sharing with you my screen. Sharing is not available to me yet.
How about now? I think I allow. Okay.
Yes. Here. So we will be discussing Gandhara Jātaka. My illustrations usually do not contain the most important detail. So I'll write it in the chat box. Gandhara Jātaka number 406. You will actually find that detail in the name of the file. If you look, if you look at the name of the file at the top left portion, I can. Oh, my screen is so small in here. Um, I can increase the size of the screen. I can see you and the presentation as well. So here we have it, Jātaka 406, Gandhārajātaka. Okay, so we will be talking first about the story from the Buddha's time. Then we will talk about the story from the previous life of the Buddha. And then we will discuss uh, what the subcommentaries add to the information in the commentary. So during the Buddha's time, and this is a story that I memorized, so I will be telling you details that are neither in the commentary nor in the subcommentary, but instead, these details I will tell you are in the Vinaya Pitaka. So Vinaya Pitaka, that's the collection of rules and explanations of rules and ethics for Buddhist monks, but also the third, and this one has 5 volumes. The third volume of Vinaya Pitaka explains the history of the Buddha's teachings, how the Buddha, right after his enlightenment, started to teach. Who did he teach first? Who did he teach second? What did he actually tell them? What were the troubles? Why did they not want to listen to him? How did the Buddha get them to actually listen to the Buddha? How did they gradually become enlightened? And then where did the Buddha go? And then who did the Buddha teach instead? And so on and on and on and on. So that also is explained in Vinaya Pitaka. But here, what we are going to talk about is a role for monks that they should not keep medicine, and that is specific medicine, for more than 7 days. So monks have several types of medicine. There's medicine that monks can keep for 7 days. Medicine monks can keep for the whole life. And of course, given that food is medicine, as we have learned from the Greek philosophers, or let's say medical professionals, we will have to say that also monks have to keep some medicine for one day, if that is the general food. So 1 day, 7 days, and lifetime. Monks are allowed to keep salt for life. Likewise, water, if you think that water is medicine. But monks definitely cannot keep, for example, rice or coconut water or something else that is usually considered as food for more than 1 day. And day starts by, I see. So there would be, however, in this particular case, 1 day we will have to reinterpret, and 1 day is from the dawn, the time when you see the light in the morning, not the sunrise. That's a little bit later. Dawn is before sunrise. Okay, dawn is the time when you see the light. First, you see the light in the morning, and then you see the sunrise. So dawn is the very first moment when you start to see actually light, when the sky starts to get blue. And then this is until the midday. And midday is, strictly speaking, the moment when the sun is right above your head. Okay, so that is called the midday. So that's why midday is your personal thing. Okay, midday is your personal thing when the sun is above your head, not anyone else's head. Okay, so if it is right above your head, then that is midday for you. But for example, my midday, when the sun is above my head, will be different from Ma Nuyana Hlai's midday. Okay, when the sun is above her head, at that time, it's not above my head anymore. So each person will have midday at a different time. But obviously, if you live at the same place, the people who live at the same place will probably have it at the same or very similar time. So monks can also keep food from dawn until midday. They can keep medicine for 7 days or for the rest of their lives. Depends on what exactly it is. And we will be talking about 5 kinds of medicine today, and that is sugar, honey, ghee, oil, and butter. How do I remember that? I remember that because 2 of them are the ingredients of sweet taste. That means sugar and honey. And then 3 of them are variations of oil or something oily. So that is butter, ghee, and oil. So these 5 ingredients are the 5 medicines prescribed by the Buddha for monks. Okay, the Buddha also prescribed some other medicines which the monks can keep for life, but that would be too much off topic for now when we talk about completely something else. Actually, the Jātaka is not necessarily about medicine. It's more about storing stuff. But because this rule is coming from medicine for storing things, then of course we'll get there soon. So now the point is that in the Buddha's time, Venerable Blindavacha, which some of you already know, is my favorite monk in the Buddha's history. So Venerable Blindavacha, my favorite master, he why is he my favorite? Because he used psychic powers to help others, to make others happy, to make others safe, to make others comfortable, or to help them understand how things are. So I like this combination between the psychic powers and loving kindness. And that is exactly what Venerable Pilindavacha exemplified. And here we will see in this story that Venerable Pilindavacha, because he was a favorite monk of the great king Pasenadi of Kosala, who we mentioned in previous lessons, uh, he he received from the king Pasenadi of Kosala 500 supporters, 500 assistants. Okay, how did that happen? Well, actually, the king came up to the Venerable Blindavacha and he says, "Oh, Venerable Sir, what are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I am now here preparing a cave for myself." And he had monks to prepare a cave for himself. And the king says, "Venerable Sir, I will assign you an assistant. Please ask the Buddha whether that's allowed." And Venerable Pilindavacha sent a messenger to the Buddha asking, "Oh, Buddha, are monks allowed to have an assistant?" And he told the king, "Oh, dear king, I don't know whether we are allowed to have an assistant. Please wait and come to see me next time. I will ask the Buddha and we will see whether that is allowed." So the king left, and the messenger left as well. And the messenger asked the Buddha, and the Buddha collected the monks who were present with the Buddha, and he says, "Monks, I allow monks to have an assistant." Okay, so then the messenger went up to Venerable Pilindavacha, and he says, "Oh, Venerable Pilindavacha, the Buddha said that monks are allowed to have an assistant." So then the king came up to the Venerable Pilindavacha again, and he asked, "Venerable Sir, so what did the Buddha say?" And the Venerable Pilindavacha says, "Oh, dear king, the Buddha said that we are allowed to have an assistant." And the king says, "Venerable Sir, okay, so I will give you an assistant." And the king left, and the king was gone. 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 300, no, I think, yes, 1 year, 400 days, 500 days. The king was busy with his stuff. You know, kings are busy taking care of their country. And after 500 days, the king calls his minister. He says, "Oh, dear minister, we promised the Venerable Gandhara an assistant. So did he get an assistant?" And the minister says, "No, dear king." And the king says, "Okay, so how many days was it since we promised an assistant to Venerable Gandhara?" And the minister says, "It was altogether 500 days." And the king says, "Okay, so let's send to Venerable Gandhara altogether 500 assistants." So imagine 500 human beings, 500 people marching to the monastery of Venerable Pilindavacha, and they are his assistants. So now you need to understand what that means. An assistant is somebody who lives close or with the monk in the monastery, is a lay person. That means they need to make money. And as they live with the monk or close to the monk, they they help, they clean, they build, they repair, they provide, they bring, they take away, and so on and on. Whatever the monk needs to be done, that assistant will do that for the monk. And that is understood as a merit, as a good deed. So many people live in the monasteries as lay people, and they serve the monks as a good deed. And in the meantime, for their good deed, or as they are living there, they receive meal, they receive place to stay, they receive support from donors, and so on, for helping the monk with whatever he needs. And thanks to these assistants, it is easier for the monks to follow the rules. For example, monks cannot keep food after the midday overnight until the next day. Monks actually could keep the food until the evening if they do not touch it, if they do not eat it. But by then, an assistant will have to take it away. Or if the monk happens to keep it until the next day, the monk will have to destroy that food without eating it at all. So the food basically turns into stuff. It's no more edible, but the monk can touch it, and throw it away, destroy it, burn it, whatever, or give it to someone else. Monks cannot give food to everybody, only to the assistants in the monastery, to people who come there and work there. That means they turn into assistants for a short while, or to very poor people who come in the monastery and they're going for journey, or to robbers or kings, so that they do not get angry if they do not receive it from the monk. Okay, so the monk benefits a lot when an assistant is lives in a monastery, because the assistant can actually take the food from the monk. Then the food becomes the assistant's food. It's not the monk's food anymore, but the assistant keeps the food for the monk. So then the next day, the assistant can give the food to the monk. And then the other day, the assistant can give some more of that food to the monk. So that way, the food is stored, but it's not stored by the monk, it's stored by the assistant. So assistants can, in various ways, assist the monks in whatever they need. Let's say the monk needs to buy books for studying, or then they need to buy, maybe to pay electricity, and so on and on. Monks are not allowed to touch money. That would be a big problem. So the assistants, what they do, they are those who receive the money from the donors. And then when the electricity bill is due, the assistant will pay the electricity bill. The assistant will buy the food if needed. But that's not much recommended. It's better if the monk goes to the alms round and gets food from the people every day. And the assistant can go buy the books. The monk only needs to tell the assistant, "Oh, dear assistant, I need a book." So this way, assistants are extremely helpful in the monk's life. And now here, Venerable Penendavacha got 500 assistants. That is a lot. That is a lot. And these 500 assistants, to live close to Venerable Pelindavacha, had to set up a village. They had to set up Venerable Pelindavacha's assistant village. And that's why it was called the Venerable Pelindavacha village. That's what's written in the scriptures, not my idea. And so there you have the Venerable Pelindavacha's large village of 500 people. And they are all Venerable Pelindavacha's assistants. So whatever he needs, whatever he wants, he just tells them and they do it. And one day they had a celebration. And now we are going a little bit closer to what's written here in the commentary, sub-commentary. Because the story in the Vinaya Pitaka is pretty detailed, so I'm providing you with a lot of details. And there is this celebration, so people are celebrating some festival that might be actually mentioned in here. And as the people are celebrating this festival, where do we have that? Oh, over there. Okay. So as the people are celebrating this festival, children are having many garlands and gems and flowers and things. And there is one family who, however, don't have that. Okay, they don't have it. This family is so poor they cannot manage. They cannot afford even a flower. They cannot even buy a beautiful flower. So the child is standing at the door and crying. It is supposed to be girl, but whatever. We have a boy in here. So the girl is standing there at the door, and she's watching the children, and she's like, "Give me a garland, give me a flower." But of course, they don't care at all, because that's what sometimes children do. And so she's crying and crying, and nothing helps. And the parents cannot give her anything because they're too poor. The kids don't give her anything because they're kids. And there we have the monk, Venerable Pelindavacha, coming for alms round. Imagine a monk is coming for alms round to the village of his own assistants. I think that is so amazing. And as he is there at the alms round, he comes to this house, and he sees the child. Now, in those times, usually when you would go for alms round, and today in Sri Lanka, that tradition is also still held, not that much in Myanmar at all. But in Sri Lanka, when you go for alms round, you would often be invited inside the house. Okay, so they invite you inside the house, they have you sit on a chair, they prepare you some hot tea or coffee or whatever they want to prepare for you. And during that time, they prepare meal for you. So then when they pack the meal, usually in banana leaves, yeah, those are really leaves, real leaves from banana plants called plantain. And they then give you the meal and they send you away. So as Venerable Balintavacha is sitting here in the chair, he is asking the parents, dear parents, I can see there's this child crying. What is going on? And the parents explain the situation, which I already explained. And then Venerable Balintavacha says, oh, dear parent, do you see this stick? Actually, he's asking for a stick, but the subcommentary or the commentary says that he's asking for a bunch of grass. So either a stick or a bunch of grass, that's not a problem. And he says, do you see this stick on the ground? And they say, yes. And he says, take that stick and put it on the head of the child. Imagine a stick from a tree lying on the ground. You need to understand that in those times they did not have some luxurious flooring like we have today, like we have carpets and parquet and so on. No, that's not what they had. Even today in Sri Lankan homes, you will see that their flooring is very simple, just a kind of like concrete or soil. It's very natural that there was a stick on that soil, and so the parent. What did the parent do? Today, parents would say, "Oh, Venerable Sir, are you mad? Are you stupid? Why are you asking me to take a stick? I will not do that. Go away." That's what sometimes would happen today. But in those times, because moreover, Venerable Belinda Vacha, he was supported by the king, people would never doubt. So whatever he said, they follow. They're here, his assistant, they're his lifetime assistant for the rest of their lives. They will be serving Venerable Belinda Vacha. And so the mother said, yes, venerable sir. You see, that's what's done usually when you answer to venerable monk. So she took that stick and she put it on the head of the child. And now something that would probably not happen today, but that's what happened. Venerable Palindavacha transformed by his psychic powers that bunch of grass or stick or whatever it was into a beautiful golden garland. Okay, it is actually in the Vinaya Pitaka, it's explained as a golden, beautiful lotus crown. Okay, lotus crown. Now, because the AI didn't have that information, this is what we are getting, but it was a beautiful lotus crown, more beautiful than anything the wives, or we call them concubines, of the king ever had. So a very, very beautiful ornament on the head. And then what happened was that you would think, okay, so now the child is so happy and everybody is happy, and that's the end of the story. No, actually, that's the beginning of the story. Yeah, we've been talking here 30 minutes, and it's the beginning of the story. Why? Because the people were jealous. You see, modern world and ancient world at the same time is characterized by trouble. So when the child had this beautiful garland, beautiful ornament or crown, the people were jealous. And they're like, how can this child, how can this poor family have anything so precious? Surely they stole it. The king doesn't have it. It's not in the palace, but somehow they stole it. Whatever. So that's what people made up, but the king believed that. Well, it makes sense, right? So it's a poor family. So how can they get such a great gem? And so the king put them into prison. We have that here. We are now really in the commentary level, commentary story. So the king put them in the prison because it made sense what the people believed. And so Venerable Brindavacha next day comes for the alms round and he's like, there's this family. There was a family. And now they're not there. So he's asking the neighbors, and the neighbors say, well, Venerable Sir, uh, they had a golden crown, and even the king doesn't have anything like that. So where they could get it, they surely stole it. And so the king put them to the prison. They're in the jail. So Venerable Pinindavacha came up to to the king Pasenadi of Kosala, and he says, "Oh, dear king, do you remember you gave me the 500 assistants? And one of the assistants or the family is now no more in the village. Where are they gone?" And the king says, "Well, venerable sir, they had this beautiful golden crown. Not even I have any crown of that kind. How could they get it, such a poor family? They surely stole it, and I put them in the jail." So then Venerable Palindavacha, you know what he did? He says he, by his psychic powers, transformed the palace of the king into gold. And he's like, oh, you know what, king? Where did you get so much of gold? I find that pretty funny because uh, then should the king now be put into the prison for stealing the gold? Well, no, that's of course off topic. The king immediately realized, aha, you now transformed my palace into gold. I never had so much gold. Now I have gold as much as is all the bricks in my palace. So, well, obviously that's what you did. You actually made something gold for them. Aha, that was your psychic power, not their stealing. And he immediately released the family from the prison. And the people around, they were so happy. They were so extremely joyful. Wow, Venerable Brindavacha has psychic powers. He did something nice to a poor family, and he was also able to change the palace of the king into gold so that he releases the family after they suffered the natural thing in the world, which is called jealousy. And so what they did, they gave 5 medicines to Venerable Palindavacha. Let's check that out, whether that's true. And here, molasses is the word for sugar. Okay, so we have the ghee butter oil, and then we have the three oily things and the two sweet things. So we have honey and sugar. Sugar and molasses is understood as the same thing in monks' communities. So monks commonly keep sugar for 7 days, and they understand it as molasses. The same thing. Okay, so the Venerable Palindavacha received a huge amount of these 5 medicines, and because he's Venerable Palindavacha, he's an arahant, he has no greed, no attachment, then therefore he gave it all to his students. But his students do have attachment. So what they did, they kept it for a long time in everything because it was so much and they needed to have, all these receptacles, the vessels for keeping all of these 5 ingredients. So they had a lot of it, keeping it in water pots, keeping it in bowl bags, anything and everything they could use to keep it, they used it. And of course, after some time, and the supplementary doesn't say that, but the Vinaya Pitaka does, after some time, you know what happened if you keep food for a long time in ancient environment? Animals will come to take some of it. So, of course, rats were coming into the storage rooms and they were eating it. So the storage rooms became dirty. They became mess. It was a big mess. And then people came because people, until today, even in Sri Lanka, they like to come into a monastery and they just look. I don't really understand what they exactly want to do by this thing, but whatever. They come into the monastery, they look into the rooms of the monks, and they're curious what the monks are doing and what they are having and what's in their rooms. I see. Yeah, the reason probably they do this is because they want to know if the monks need something. But in the Buddha's time, the people would do it simply just basically like today when you visit a tourist attraction, the people would visit monasteries. So they're like looking, oh, this is how the monks live. Oh, this is what the monks have. Oh, this is what the monks use. And now these people, they come to the monastery and they see, oh, wow, rats. Oh, wow, cockroaches. Oh, wow, a lot of mess. So that's what the people saw, and they were not happy. They told it to the monks told it to the Buddha, and then the Buddha made a rule. Monks should not keep these medicines longer than 7 days. Okay, so now we go into the story of the past life. So we have covered the monks thing, the Buddha's rule, and now we are coming to the past life finally. Um, so in the past life, the Buddha explains that there were two kings. The king of the kingdom called Gandhara, and then the king of the kingdom called something else. I don't remember. Gandhara and Videha. Here we have it. Gandhara and Videha. And they were good friends, but they never saw each other. So one day, the one of the kings, he sees the moon, and he sees the moon eclipse. That means the moon is hidden behind, and guess what it is? It's actually behind Earth. Or it could be, maybe it could be something else, but oftentimes if the moon is covered, it's actually covered by the Earth itself, by the planet. But in those times, they didn't know that it's the planet, that it's us who cover the moon. They thought that it is a demon. The demon is called Rahu. Rahu, the demon Rahu. But actually, it's us, it's the Earth. It could be something else. Okay, it's not always Earth. Um, I'm not exactly sure what could it be, but uh, sometimes it is the Earth. So it could be the Earth at this story. So it could be actually the king and his planet covering the moon. But anyway, they didn't know that. So they explained it as that it's the demon covering the moon. And so they don't see the moon. So at the time when the ground should be nicely alighted by the beautiful light of the full moon, unfortunately, was completely dark because it was covered by the planet or by the demon Mar. What's that? Rahu. And so the king is trying to learn from this a moral lesson. I like how in our scriptures again and again we see a great person or somebody who will become a monk or Pacceka Buddha or an arahant and so on. In their lay life, they see something interesting and they take it as a metaphor for something in their life. They create it. They create this what they see into a metaphor, and they look at the real life, something that they can learn for themselves from the natural thing that they see. You see, now the king is seeing that the moon is covered by the planet or whatever, by the demon Rahu. And the king is not like, oh, the moon is covered by Rahu. Now we are doomed. Now there will be no light. Now we have lost the moon. That's horrible. No, that's not what the king is doing. The king is thinking, what am I going to think of about my life, about the things that I do in connection to this thing that's happening outside? And he realizes, aha, so maybe in the way how the moon is now covered by a demon, maybe my life is covered by a demon. Is that possible? Would that metaphor work? And he sees, oh, yeah, that's true. I'm actually here admonishing my ministers. I'm teaching them all the time how to be kind, how to be patient, but I do not really have time to teach myself. I don't have really time to grow my own wisdom, my own peace, my own concentration. So maybe that means that I need to become a monk and have time for myself and develop my mind and my wisdom. So taking the natural thing as a metaphor for something in his life, he came to the conclusion that he needs to become a monk. In this case, he didn't become a monk in a monastery because there was no Buddha and no monks at that time, but instead he went into the Himalayas, into the mountains, and he became an ascetic. So he lived alone. Now his friend, the king of Videha, he learned that his friend, the king of Gandhara, became an ascetic, and the king of Videha thinks like, now my friend became an ascetic, so what am I going to do? I will still be a king, then I would not be following the wisdom of my friend, because that's what you do when you have a wise friend. So I need to follow the wisdom of my friend, and I need to become an ascetic as well. So the king of Videha became an ascetic as well. And now, when you become ascetic, you usually give away your name, you give away your power, you give away your ability, your potential to control people or get things or have things. So they became basically nameless ascetics, and at one point they met together. They didn't know who they are. They were just friendly ascetics with each other. But at one point, they were asking each other, how did you become an ascetic? And they found out that they were the two king friends. So they were so happy together, and were very intimate and very honest and very nice to each other, helping each other. And now you know what happened? One day, people gave the king of Videha One day, the people gave the king of Videha salt. So salt was very important. You need salt to actually survive, especially in the ancient times. Monks would even go from the Himalaya mountains to the village to actually get specifically salt so that they can continue life. So we here learned that really salt is let's say, the primary medicine. It's a necessary medicine for the human to be healthy and to live long. And while today, and also from the Buddha's time, salt is allowed for monks to be kept for the rest of their life. Here, the salt, we could take it as more of an like inflation of the situation. So the Buddha wants to teach monks not to keep things for a long time, because the monks were found to keep all these medicinal ingredients for a long time until the rats and different insects and things came to eat it. So the Buddha is teaching them a lesson from something more inflated. So of course monks can keep salt for the rest of their lives. That means for 50, for 70 years. But here the Buddha is explaining that keeping salt actually for even one day has been a cause of admonishment and of a trouble in the ascetic environment. So the king Videha, here the ascetic, so let's call him the Videha ascetic to make it easier. So the Videha ascetic, he kept salt from the people for one day, in case if the next day they received food without salt. And so when they received food without salt, the king Videha, the Videha ascetic, he gave a little bit of the salt to his friend because they're good friends. He gave a little bit of it to his friend, the Gandhara ascetic. And the Gandhara ascetic asks, but wait, there's a problem. We didn't receive any salt, but you're giving me salt. Where is that salt coming from? So the Videha ascetic explains, I kept it from yesterday. And so the Gandhara ascetic is shocked. What? You kept salt from yesterday? Why would you do that? You're an ascetic. You do not keep things. You do not cause attachment. Instead, you destroy attachment. And so he admonished him and he says, what, you, the former Videha king who had the power over a kingdom? Well, the kingdom was relatively small, but anyway, you had a power over a kingdom. You had thousands of dancing ladies. You had all that wealth of a king and you gave it up all. And now here you will be storing salt for a day. And so the king Videha says, "What? You Gandhara king? You were the king of much, much bigger kingdom, and you could admonish ministers and you were teaching them how to be good. You gave it up all so that you admonish me here for keeping salt for one day." So they were poking fun of each other, but guess who won? Actually, the Gandhara ascetic won. How did he win? He won because he says, but I'm admonishing you because that is the righteousness. I'm helping you to be a good ascetic. And only through righteous admonishment it is possible to become a good person. In Buddhism, actually admonishing when that's needed, when that is good, is the sign of being a good friend. And not admonishing is a sign of being a bad friend. So, in fact, from the Gandhara king's perspective, not admonishing the Videha ascetic would actually mean that he's not a good friend, that he is not a good person. A good person is one who admonishes the person who does bad things. Okay. This is unfortunately not a thing. In Asia, many people are really scared to admonish each other. In Asia, especially in Myanmar and Sri Lanka, you would simply keep the mouth shut instead of admonishing when that is needed. It, of course, creates a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of troubles. But in the Buddha's time, this was very, very strict. Monks, if they do not admonish each other, they actually break rule. If a monk sees another monk breaking a rule, and the monk who sees the other monk does not admonish the other monk for breaking the rule and to be better, then this monk who did not admonish, simply for not admonishing, broke a rule. So that is a very interesting thing. And it's very strict. Like here in the USA, if you don't admonish, that is a problem. You must admonish. It's very strict here in the work environment, not so much in the family life, but in work environment, absolutely. And in West, like in Europe, it's even worse. In Europe, you actually get the other extreme. You get admonished for total nonsense when it's not needed and when you are wrong. So in Europe, you would usually admonish when you are not supposed to admonish because the other person is right. So that is another extreme. We need to admonish when it is right to admonish, not when it is not right to admonish, and we should not be silent as well. So that's what happened when the Gandhara ascetic admonished the Videha ascetic for storing in a righteous, in a correct way, because storing is wrong and admonishing wrong thing is right. And you know what happened? Because Videha ascetic was a wise ascetic, he understood. He understood that admonishment is right, and he agreed, and he apologized. And he put away the salt, and he followed the admonishment of his good friend. Okay, so we already covered this slide. So now we have a little bit more into the explanation from the subcommentaries. So the subcommentaries explain to us a little bit on the geography of the times. Now, you know that they explain to us military techniques, so hopefully they'll also explain us other stuff, such as geography. And they do. I'd say the subcommentaries are pretty like equanimous towards information. So all information is treated in a similar way. Okay, so be it geography, be it military killing techniques, be it food, so you will learn how to cook from the subcommentaries, especially from the subcommentaries. You will learn about the different fruits and vegetables. You will learn about the different medicines, about clothes, about all kinds of uh, art, about Yeah, even about theater. You will learn the different insults that they were using, but of course, in the context of not insulting others. So, different clothing styles, all kinds of things. So, the sub-commentaries, commentaries are a beautiful historical panorama on the Buddha's time. And so here we have information about geography, Kingdom of Videha and Kingdom of Gandhara. The Kingdom of Videha had perimeter of 300 leagues, and Kingdom of Videha had a perimeter of 28 leagues. What is a perimeter? Perimeter is the line that goes around the border, okay, that lines the border. So basically, the length of the border. And so, for example, if we want to find out the width of the city of Mithila, is really like that. This is not exactly how I understood it. But anyway, so let's say we have here city of Mithila, the kingdom of Videha, yes. So we have the kingdom of Videha. Okay, so kingdom of Videha, 300 leagues. That means that's the perimeter, not the how do you call it? That's okay. So the perimeter is 300 leagues. You need to understand 300 times 10, you will get miles. Okay, so 3,000 miles. You have the perimeter, the length of the border, 3,000 miles, and you will have the kingdom of Videha, which I believe had perimeter of 28 leagues. So something I probably misunderstood, but that's what we have. And when you have the perimeter of 28 leagues, which was actually Kingdom of Videha, then that means that one side, and this was a square, one side had seven leagues, so 70 miles. So it was a small kingdom, okay? Whereas the kingdom of Gandhara was much larger. It has 300 leagues. I will verify and I will tell you in our summary document whether it was me who misunderstood or the AI. Okay, so there were 18 cubits height and city and the side extent was 7 leagues. Cubit is usually understood is I think that cubit could be a synonym for foot. Let me see. So they're ancient, but foot is 12 inches, whereas cubit is 1.5 to 2 feet. Yes, so I was right. They're comparable. So you can think of cubits as longer feet, as let's say 2 feet. So this would be 36 feet, okay, into American measures. And then we have uh, the explanation of where did the Videha ascetic probably kept the salt. So he kept it in a tube hidden in the roof of his hut. Very nice. Path of discipline. So the hollow state, the hollow man. Yes. So this is a very interesting thing that I did not know before reading this sub-commentary. So we are all learning as we are reading the sub-commentaries. So the Buddha is often portrayed as admonishing monks by starting with the words Mogha Purisa. So the Buddha will say Mogha Purisa, and then he will explain what's the problem. So Purisa means a man, and it is in the vocative tense, vocative whatever conjugation. So vocative declension. So you decline the word puriso, puriso, purisa. So here purisa means that you're calling the man. Man, okay? Purisa. And Mogha defines the man. So what kind of man are you? And Mogha usually is translated in English as foolish or stupid. Stupid man. Imagine the Buddha calling a monk stupid man after every time the monk would do something wrong. So that's how it seems from the English translation, and that's how I learned it. Okay? Because when I learned Pali, what did I use? I used Pali English Dictionary. So then that didn't really help because even then, when I read Pali, I would understand it from the meaning that I got from the Pali English Dictionary. Now, if you look into Pali Burmese Dictionary, you will learn something else. But still, that's not exactly what we learn here from the subcommentary. From the Burmese translation, we learn that it means useless man. Chi ni do pogo. Chi ni do yaocha. So you will learn that Mogha Purisa means useless man. So the Buddha, according to the Burmese, so the Pali Burmese dictionary, the Buddha is admonishing the monks, starting with the words, useless man, useless man. You see, it's better than saying stupid man, but still we did not really get much better. Still, the Buddha here is using something that we would call today an insult. So I studied Buddhism now for over like maybe about 25 years. And after these 25 years, I have learned today or yesterday, actually, yesterday I have learned that actually Mogha Purisa means something else. And that makes things so much clearer because Mogha Purisa actually, according to the subcommentary, means somebody who did not achieve psychic powers, somebody who did not achieve deep levels of concentration, somebody who did not achieve enlightenment. And that just suddenly starts to make sense. Suddenly, the Buddha is not insulting. Suddenly, the Buddha is only reminding, oh, dear friend who has not attained anything yet, this, what you are doing, is not helpful to you to attain anything. Wow, suddenly it's no more admonishment. Suddenly it's a reminder. Dear friend, you did not attain anything yet, but you're working here so hard to attain something. And this, what you're doing, is a hindrance. It's an obstacle on your way. Wow, so the Buddha did not insult the monks. Huh. I thought for 25 years that the Buddha did. But here the supplementary is totally changing the story. So this is something I wanted to share with you. Some of you have not been studying Buddhism 25 years yet, so I think you will benefit from it and you will get a better perception already in the beginning of your studies. So the Buddha does not seem to be insulting monks, at least according to the subcommentarial explanation, and instead the Buddha is encouraging in the same way how he encouraged his friend Videha, ascetic, where he also used the words Mogha Purisa for his friend in the sense of encouraging the person to actually start to do things correctly so that they actually progress from the state where they have not progressed yet. And you know what? The very interesting thing is that when an enlightened person or person who had jhanas during the Buddha's, well, not the person who had jhanas, but person who would be enlightened during the Buddha's time, the Buddha would never call them Mogha Purisa. So, for example, when the Buddha's main assistant, but monk assistant, not a layperson, monk assistant, Venerable Ananda, when Venerable Ananda would, for example, cook a dinner for the Buddha in the evening, but not really the dinner of the kind you would imagine, but medicinal dinner, because the Buddha was ill, the Buddha would admonish Venerable Ananda saying, Mogha Purisa, sorry, the Buddha would not admonish, that's the point. The Buddha did not admonish Venerable Ananda saying Mogha Purisa because Venerable Ananda was not empty. Venerable Ananda had first level of enlightenment at that time already. So the Buddha did not actually use the word Mogha Purisa for those who were enlightened, which would be a support for the theory that the Buddha never insulted anyone, but instead reminded them, dear sir, You are here, you have not achieved anything, and this, what you are doing, is an obstacle on your path. So you need to remove that obstacle so you finally achieve something. So you see, it's a friendly guidance and advice, not an insult at all. Okay, so we basically covered these things that are over here directly or indirectly, and that's all for today. And we are beautifully on time. So I will cancel the sharing of the screen. And because again, we will not have therefore a separate session for all questions, I would like to give this opportunity to you if you have any questions. Of course, if you are shy to ask me question or of anything or for any other reason, you can always send it to me here in the comment or in WhatsApp. But here we are. We still have some time. So if you have any question, I'm listening. You can ask. Very nice. So thank you everybody for joining me here. I'm looking forward to sharing with you the Jātaka next week. That one will be very interesting. There will be some medical information that might be interestingly useful for your daily life as well. We'll be talking about why is it important to eat. And until then, I wish you all to be happy, healthy, to be successful and
Excuse
to
me.
have plenty of time for meditation every day, and if possible, to achieve the ultimate bliss of Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.